Good evening. Welcome to the November 15th. It is 15th, isn't it?
Yes.
It is 15th, yes. Welcome to November 15th meeting of the Town of Southampton Conservation Board. In accordance with the Town Board's adoption of Local Law Number 14 of 2022, the Board's meetings are being held both in person at Town Hall and via video conference through Zoom webinar. The link to participate in this meeting via video conference can be found on the town's website at the Town Clerk's Agendas and Meetings portal. You can also watch the live stream video and submit written comments for the public record through the town website. If you are attending via Zoom and wish to speak during this meeting, then please click the raise hand icon. As a reminder to all applicants, agents, and members of the public who wish to speak at the meeting, please state your name and hamlet residence for the record. Thank you. I invite everyone to rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You missed the pledge.
I did it outside.
Okay.
How are you, Tom? Hi, Santra. Deb, how you doing?
Hi, George.
Yeah, what's your name again?
What is your pleasure on the meeting, on the minutes of November 1st, 2023?
Move to accept.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearings, A 019131 Lynn Crew Revocable Trust. The applicant requested adjournment to March 27th, 2024. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this application?
Motion to adjourn to March
Wait,
20.
wait, I'm talking.
That's because the agent is going to be away for the winter.
This has been a long application. I'm just gonna look and see how many adjournments they've been asking for. Unless you're gonna tell me some magic progress is gonna be made between the time she's away all winter, then how are we gonna get any work done?
I would say there could be nothing done because she doesn't want to do anything until her agent gets back. Doesn't want to face it alone.
She should reapply. It's been on the agenda for a long time.
And just, you know, the applicant has not submitted any new information since last week.
Sorry, I'm losing my sympathy. I'm sure withdraw and reapply when the agent gets back. At
Let's
least
give
send him a
them a
note to
few.
tell him this, and we're not gonna keep putting this off the agenda in March. We don't even know how many of us are gonna be on in March.
Okay, so let's talk about that in March when they come back. In the meantime, is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn till March 27th.
Second.
All in favor?
No,
Opposed?
opposed.
Corinne, did you get that? One naysayer? A 02304011 Shore Drive LLC.
It's a new hearing. We do have affidavits of posting and mailing compliance to the town code, so the board does have jurisdiction to open the hearing.
Daphne, you may present your application.
I'm handing out a new survey and some recent site photos. and some aerials. Daphne Vaughn, Surfside Environmental Planning, for the applicant 11 Shore Drive LLC. The survey that I'm handing you is identical to the original project. The only thing that has changed is the proposed grading and fill calculation. Okay. So, the subject property is located at 11 West Shore Drive in North Sea and fronts on Little Peconic Bay to the northwest, as well as a brackish and freshwater wetland to the southeast, which is located across West Shore Drive, which is an unpaved road. The wetland boundary was flagged by myself on March 30th, 2022, and is largely in keeping with the last delineation by Mr. Shea, the Chief Environmental Analyst, that was done in June of 2017. On the bayfront side of the property, up here, there is a fringe of Spartina patens associated with a stone berm located along the shorefront that largely comprises the boundary on that side of the property. Across the road, down here, this is where the aerial that I submitted is helpful. There's a large multi-parcel assemblage of interior wetlands that span West Shore Drive to Edgemere Drive and portions of Bayview Drive in that whole neighborhood. A lot of those parcels, I believe, are either town or county-owned. The lot currently contains a pre-1957 one-story dwelling with a footprint of 940 square feet, located on the southwest corner of the property, adjacent to the road, with a 300 square foot deck and steps on the bay side of that dwelling. The closest structural setback to the wetlands at present is 42 feet from the street side wetland boundary. The entire property is located within a FEMA AE elevation 6 flood zone, with the limit of moderate wave action located approximately in the area of the bayside wetland boundary, cutting straight here across. So at the present time, the owners wish to demolish all the existing structures on the site and construct a new two-story residence on a piling foundation with a footprint of 2,425 square feet, located 70 feet from the street side wetland boundary and 82 feet from the bayside wetland boundary at its closest point, as well as a 602 square foot first floor deck with a 420 square foot second floor deck that would be over it. Here. Excuse me. 76 feet from the bayside wetlands and 120 feet from the street side wetlands. There was a 5 by 7 foot spa proposed on the first floor deck, 79 feet from the wetland boundary on the bay side and 124 feet from the street side wetlands, as well as an 82 square foot front entry porch and steps, 64 feet from the wetlands on the landward side and 135 feet from the bay. The project will include abandonment of the existing sanitary system, which is located, if this is the existing, I'm gonna do this. This is the existing development. The existing sanitary system is located on the bay side of the deck. So that will be removed. It's about 114 feet from the bay. And the new IAOWTS system will be put in here central with the proposed development. And that is going to accommodate a 4-bedroom residence at 104 feet from the bay wetlands and 70 feet from the street wetlands. Coltech drainage chambers are proposed for roof drainage and hot tub drainage, as well as a pervious driveway. The original survey revision that we submitted back in August, in accordance with the notice of incomplete from Mr. Shea, depicted 1,060 cubic yards of fill proposed for the project for the septic and drainage structures needs. However, in preparation for this hearing, I spoke with the surveyor and the engineer to confirm those calculations, and the surveyor, when he redid the calculations, told me that he did have an error, and also we spoke with the engineer, and he told me that we could tighten up the proposed fill. So that's what this survey before you shows. Where on this survey, we cut across, following this contour line underneath the house. We're cutting it closer to the walls of the foundation that will be on pilings, in keeping with the 3-to-1 slope ratio that's required by the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. So the fill gets cut down to 750 cubic yards. So that's a little more than 300 cubic yards less, yes, than what we were proposing originally.
Daphne, could you break that down into how much is used for each structure?
Well, it's all for the septic and the drainage, essentially, so. What do
And
you
the
mean?
septic and drainage are those that are delineated as brown, dark brown.
So this is the septic, and then these purpley blue items are the drainage structures. So this entire western portion of the property will become primarily sanitary and drainage. So this is where the majority of that fill will be located. The remainder will be for this remaining drainage, over here, which will also be in the driveway. Now, some of the reason that some of it has to be underneath the house is also for the piping to the residents. It needs to be covered for winterization, but also it's that 3-to-1 slope ratio that the health department requires, from what I have been told by the engineer. So 750 cubic yards is not a lot, considering the size of the project. And the house is really only about 3 feet above grade at its worst. I think it's about 2.5 feet in some parts.
Is that the proposed house you're talking about?
Yes. I'm sorry. We did just receive on October 24th, that's the date on that, a New York State DEC approval for the project as proposed, which I'm passing out to you, which shows the permit from the New York State DEC with the approved plans that were the plans that were originally submitted to this board, including this survey that's on the wall here, with that fill the way that it was drawn. I'm also submitting a copy of the last notice of incomplete from the Suffolk County Department of Health. That's just be copies. It's one sheet. Sorry.
I read it.
That says basically that our project was approved from them and is just pending receipt of the town and DEC wetland permits in order to receive their approval. So the total, oh, I forgot one thing. To mitigate the project, we are proposing on the survey this large block of naturally vegetated wetlands, non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer, landward of the Bayside wetland boundary, for a minimum distance of 65 feet landward of that closest flag here. Otherwise, it goes to approximately 72 feet landward at its maximum width. The buffer is comprised of about 6,822 square feet, which is 35.8% of the upland portion of the lot area, or 31.2% of the total lot, which includes the wetlands within the Bay Beach. What else? One other thing that I wanted to bring to the board's attention is shown in my site photos as well. Is a permit that was issued a few doors away at 11 Beach Road. It was transferred to Joshua Picard. That property is under construction right now. I took some recent photos over the past couple of weeks of what is under construction, what was approved. That property has wetlands more significantly within the parcel. Although it is a larger parcel than this subject property, it does have more significant wetlands surrounding it, and was approved for a two-story house with a footprint of 2,202 square feet. There was a residence of 1,800 square feet approximately on there originally. Was also approved for a two-story garage and pool house of 864 square feet. Was approved for over almost 3,300 square feet of decking and 700 square feet of pergolas. There was a pool on that property that was about 545 square feet that was allowed to be increased to 840 square feet with a spa. They were allowed 1,006 cubic yards of fill on that property with 230 linear feet of retaining walls, most of which are under construction and are close to 6 to 8 feet high under construction, and you can see that in some of my photos. In my research, it looks like their permit is not valid at the moment, which is neither here nor there, but just a fact. What else? Another point I wanted to bring out in the aerial that I submitted is that to the east of here, there's a significant amount of hardened shoreline that begins probably about, what is that, 3 houses down from here. Begins a significant expanse of concrete bulkhead that goes from that property 2 doors down all the way to the end of Edgemere Drive. I believe that ends at Oak Grove Road, pretty much, close to. So that's a large hardened shoreline in that direction. Majority of this area here is just open, unrevetted shoreline. So there may be opportunity often for some flooding. However, you'll notice in the aerial that there is a fairly large cedar tree on the top of that berm. So this area has had this large stone berm for quite some time, as a form of protection from the bay. What else? I think that's about all I have to say right now. Do you have any questions for me? I do have one of the partners with me tonight, Howard Eiferman is here with me, if you have any questions for him as well.
Daphne, is there any potential to put the stormwater drainage beneath the residence?
To relocate some of it under the residence? Well, I guess that might be possible. That would just mean probably locating some fill closer to the wetlands then, potentially. So I don't know if that would be favorable.
Any other questions?
Not at this time.
Good evening, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated October 6, 2023. It makes a host of recommendations this project, provides site characterization, and has attachments, namely town aerial imagery over successive years. The plans that were handed up tonight, I see they were completed on November 7th. However, this is the first that I'm seeing this plan, but I will do my best to speak to any revisions that are shown on these project plans. Just to give you a little bit of background here, some of which was mentioned by the applicant. The existing property contains a small home. It's a one-story home. The footprint is 940 square feet. It has 300 square feet of attached deck. The project plans that are before you that need significant relief from the wetland setback standards call for a much larger residence. As indicated by the applicant, the new residence would be two-story rather than one-story. Its footprint would take in 2,425 square feet, which is essentially 2.5 times the size of the existing house footprint. And the plans also call for about 600 square feet of deck, which is twice the size of the existing deck. A hot tub would be installed atop the deck. The plans that were handed up tonight speak to reduction in the fill amounts as indicated by the applicant. The initial cubic yards of fill stood at 1,060 cubic yards. That has been reduced to about 750 cubic yards, which amounts to about 50 to 70 truckloads of fill that would need to be brought to this site in order to proceed with the current project plans, which is indeed a considerable amount of fill. This property has many constraints, as indicated by the applicant and shown on the site plan. It's a bay-fronting property that also is backed by a large expanse of state and town regulated freshwater wetlands across an existing dirt road. Those are perhaps not the greatest challenges faced by redevelopment of this parcel. Rather, what needs to be better addressed is that this property has a history of very significant interior flooding during the winter months. As personally observed by me, where I've even seen a raft of ducks on the property, but better evidence by the successive aerial photographs, which I'm going to hand up. These photographs were attached to the preliminary advisory report, so the applicant has those photographs as well. So the first photographs that I'll hand up are from 2001. You can see the subject parcel and the large extent of floodwaters, not only on this property, but extending into the property of to the east. Based on my observations over the years, the flooding that occurs in the winter months is more a consequence of poor drainage and shallow groundwater tables, rather than due to storm impacts from the bayside or excessive flooding of the interior wetlands. The next set of photographs that I'll hand up are from 2004. And these photographs are typically taken in February or at the latest in the early spring, early April, let's say. What happens in the winter is, although you have a well-established meadow on this property, where you will see some intermixing of wetland rushes and sedges, all that vegetation shuts down during the winter, so there's no opportunity for that vegetation to absorb and take up excessive rainfall, being one of the causes for standing water for long periods of time during the winter months. The next photos I'll hand up from 2010. Again, probably taken in February of that year. And again, you're going to see very substantial, significant flooding, both on this property and on the adjacent property to the east. The next set of photos I'll hand up from 2014, from the winter months. Again, showing interior flooding, to be followed by photos from 2016, again showing perhaps lesser but significant flooding on this property and the abutting property to the east. And the final photo is more recent, 2022, that shows moist areas extending into this property and a lesser degree of flooding on the abutting property to the east. So, notwithstanding the delineation of wetlands on this property, there's frequency of significant flooding is something that needs to be addressed by the redevelopment plans. If you look at the site plan that was just handed up, you'll see angling through the proposed house footprint is a 4-foot elevation contour, and starts to the east. It goes under the proposed new house location, then it goes north, and then it angles over to the northeast. The area below that 4-foot contour is where the most significant winter flooding occurs on this property. So, notwithstanding the applicant's proposal to elevate the house on pilings, I would recommend that the house be scaled back in size, that it be shifted further south to try and get the entirety of the house or most of the house out of the area that experiences the most flooding. And this is not necessarily very shallow flooding. I've personally observed floodwaters in excess of a foot to 2 feet on this property. Likely the years when this area attracted a lot of ducks. First, there's a need for the applicant to consider practicable alternatives with regards to the size of the house and the position of the house in order to get as much of that house out of that area below the 4-foot contour where the most flooding occurs. In the years when we have serious flooding, you actually need a kayak or rowboat to get to the abutting home. During years when the flooding was particularly bad, nearly the entirety of this property had been flagged as wetlands. The second thing that needs to be addressed by these plans is notwithstanding the scaling back of the fill on the current plan that was handed up tonight, I think the applicant needs to do everything possible to scale back that fill even further. The concern with the placement of the fill is during those winters when you have very significant flooding. The placement of this fill on this property is, based upon my experience, going to increase the degree of flooding on the abutting residential developed property to the east. So we need to make sure that whatever plan is approved for this site, that it's not going to result in adverse impacts to the abutting residents into the east. If indeed the applicant looks to redesign the house, to shift the house south of that 4-foot contour, That change would also allow for increase of the wetland buffer on the bay side up to 75 or greater feet. Yes, it would push the residents closer to the freshwater wetlands across West Shore Drive, but I think notwithstanding the additional construction setback relief that would be needed from those wetlands and the absence of any buffering zone for those wetlands, I think the greater need is to get the new residents out of that portion of the property that experiences very significant flooding. The applicant is proposing a residence with a footprint that would be 2.5 times the size of the existing residence, and is asking this board to approve a deck that would be twice that size. Considering the degree of wetland setback and buffer relief and the constraints posed by flooding, I think that house size is excessive for this property. In the interest of looking at ways to further reduce the amount of fill that's brought to the property, it's somewhat unclear to me, looking at this drawing right now, as to how much vertical separation the current plans are providing for between the base of the subsurface drainage structures and the groundwater. It appears to be 12 inches. In that regard, the town engineer has advised my office that when you go with this type of drainage system, you only need a 6-inch separation between the base of the Coltec or subsurface drainage chambers and the groundwater table. So to address, in addressing the standards of the town engineer, it does look like there would be further opportunity to reduce the amount of fill that's proposed on this property. I'm not necessarily questioning any of the fill that might be required for elevation of the sanitary system as per the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. But if you look at the current plan, notwithstanding the scaling back of the fill under the house, the remainder of the area of development, inclusive of the driveway and drainage, would all be filled, and that appears to be excessive and appears to pose significant risk of adverse impacts to the adjacent property. So as recommended by my advisory report, I would again ask the applicant to further explore design options in the interest of scaling back the extended development. Remember, this is going to be a two-story house. So while they would not necessarily have the opportunity to build a modern box-shaped house and get full use of the second floor because of the constraints posed by the pyramid law, the two-story design does allow for additional living area as well. Again, putting the combined living area at even greater than 2.5 times the living area of the current house. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
As this board is well aware, there are multiple jurisdictions on this property, one being the New York State DEC, who has already issued a permit on this project. Marty asked about the distance to groundwater for the drainage. It's actually 2 feet, which is a requirement of the state. So regardless of the town engineer's ability to reduce the amount of fill for drainage, that is against what the New York State DEC laws allow. So I'm not sure how one can do that and still get a New York State DEC permit without asking for a variance and giving good reason as to why you would not be able to use fill for separation to groundwater for drainage. I just received this survey yesterday, regardless of the date that's on it. That was the date that I requested the revision, just as an aside.
With regard to the fill that is being discussed, is there any consideration given to having any kind of retaining wall?
There are no retaining walls proposed, unlike the other project that I did mention just 2 doors down from here that has very high retaining walls and more fill than, just around the same amount of fill than I was originally proposing erroneously. Those walls are 6 feet high. They are shown on their survey as being 2 to 6 feet high. Those walls are 6 feet high. And around by the pool, they're showing about 8 feet high, it seems, which is not in keeping with the permit. No modification has seemingly been filed for that. Nonetheless, there are 213 linear feet of retaining walls proposed on that project. We are not proposing any walls. This is just, you know, an IA system in as close to grade as possible with drainage. You know, this is not like back even, let's say, 6 or 7 years ago, where you would have had potentially a 4-foot high retaining wall for a standard sanitary system with standard 2-foot high drainage rings. You know, we've come a long way technologically speaking, that we're able to now put these things without walls and significantly lower than they were even just a few short years ago. And that's what we're proposing on this. Yes, it is a sensitive site that is subject to flooding during the winter months. So we have been cognizant of that in our design. In my mind, when I first saw this property, I said, how can we redevelop this property to make it work for everyone with, you know, updated sanitary, updated drainage, and make it something that is of a reasonable size for development, but would work for the wetlands. And to me, that would be centering it on the property for the dwelling and as much of the drainage and septic as possible. Moving it closer to the wetland on West Shore Drive, just to me, is not reasonable, because that's why I gave you that aerial. That's a pretty extensive wetland, and I don't see how that's any less valuable than Peconic Bay. So in my mind, you should be juggling balance between the 2 wetlands as best as possible.
Well, the only reason I bring up the idea of retaining walls is that Marty was concerned about some of the fill being shifted to the neighboring property during a storm or a heavy rain.
Well, in the same way, he also indicated that in the winter that he didn't feel that the flooding that occurs is due to storm events, that he feels that it's just because the vegetation that's located in that meadow is not necessarily working. So that being said, is there opportunity for my client to potentially supplement with vegetation that may work during the winter months? Could we potentially include some shrubs, maybe, that could have bigger root systems that might aid in those times when there's flooding on the property? That might be a form of mitigation, supplemental planting within that meadow. Because if you look at those aerials, a large majority of those years where there's lesser flooding, it takes place mainly within the area of the buffer that we're proposing. There is some that does take place maybe a little bit lower here, but I don't think that it ever, in the years where it's not as crazy as, I don't know what year that was, 2010, I want to say, where it looks like almost the whole property is flooded. Yeah, 2010. But in these other aerials, it's not flooding as far as the proposed development. Sorry. A large majority is within the buffer we are proposing. My concern is that if we take this proposal and start sliding things closer to this wetland, I'm going to be in a war, essentially, a setback war between this board and New York State DEC. That I go back to modify with them, and they may say, well, you've already shown us you can meet this setback from this wetland, because they have dual jurisdiction, freshwater and tidal wetlands here. So I have to maintain the setback that I have here, or give them a really good reason as to why I can't. But doing the math, the entire proposed development is 2.2 times the existing development on this property. Like I said, the buffer is 35% of the upland of the property. And the development itself is 13.2% of the entire property, but 16% of the upland, which is half of what the buffer would be.
Daphne, a calculation methodology question.
Yes.
When you calculate how much fill you want to add to this, do you start with grade, or I'm thinking about for the area of the septic system, or do you start with some of that area being excavated and then fill underneath it and add all that as fill?
I think that the surveyor calculated it. He started with grade, I believe, and then any new fill that was going on top of that. Any of these new topography lines.
Okay.
Morgan Shedd, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. Regarding the applicant's concerns about having to go back to the DEC with modified plan and to seek greater relief and setbacks from the interior wetlands. I'm happy to write a letter that can be forwarded to the DEC to explain why it's my office's position that what's best for this site is for that house to be moved further south. When the town permits a home, we need to make sure that home is safe. We need to do everything possible to make sure the residents or renters are going to have safe access, that they're not going to be caught in the home when the area is flooded with no ability to get out of the home. So I think that the town needs to do everything possible to make sure that the house on this property is situated in the best possible location to avoid those risks to health and safety in terms of the future occupants of this house. The flooding that occurs in the winter months is of course related to potentially greater levels of precipitation during the winter months as well, in addition to the inability of the herbaceous plants to take up much water during the winter months. So even if we look to supplement the area with shrubs, the shrubs are pretty much shutting down in the winter months as well. So I don't think that's going to significantly change the degree of flooding. In years past, there was even great difficulty driving down this section of the road during the winter months because of the degree of flooding. Some years ago, some of the residents put some gravel down on top of the existing stone and sand road in order to at least get the road higher. So, in terms of the lesser setbacks of my recommended repositioning the house from wetlands, those impacts can also be offset by requiring native landscaping, which I'm sure the applicant would be amenable. The use of natives in landscaping not only lessens the potential for contamination from landscape fertilizers and chemicals, it also provides additional habitat for native insects, songbirds, native flora, and other wildlife. If we did not have this significant flooding issue to address, I agree with the applicant. I would look to center the house location between the interior freshwater wetlands and the bay-fronting wetlands. But I think you, in this case, you need to set a priority on getting the home out of that area that floods. And again, the applicant is looking for a house that's 2.5 times the size, or 2.25 times the size of the existing house. What Chapter 325, as this board knows, requires applicants to do is to evaluate practicable alternatives in the interest of reducing impacts. And as spelled out in the definition of practicable alternatives, better alternatives are not only plans that increase the wetland setbacks, there are also plans that reduce the scale of the home. So I think the scale of the improvements that are being proposed for this site, recognizing the challenges that are faced by redevelopment here, I think the scale is just too large. I think the applicant needs to go back to the drawing board, reduce that scale. I'm happy to put pen to paper and provide a sketch for the applicant consider in terms of a design option. But typically, I at least initially look for the applicant to consider the concerns that my office has, and to, independent of my office, come back with a sketch. Typically, when I prepare alternative sketches, the first thing that I look at is to see if I can provide the same square footage as desired by the applicant, or very similar square footage, just by shifting the house on the property. If that is problematic, then I look at, shaving off portions of the house. So there's certainly opportunity to revisit the design plans in the interest of better addressing the wetland permit issuance standards, and in the interest of making sure that any home that this board permits for the site is safe. Thank you.
Daphne, I have a question for you on the style of the house. Is it a A-frame house or a flat roof?
There should be plans that were submitted with the original application. It is a modern style house, similar to the one that's a few doors down that you can see in my photos, but not exactly similar. The second floor is slightly smaller than the first floor. It was designed so that it would not require a pyramid variance, so that it would be more readily available for a building permit once the permit process is complete with this board. Do you have did you find, oh, you have?
Yeah, I have them here. I'm just gonna
The answer
hand
is
them up to
flat.
the board.
Yes, yes.
The cost view, show, here's the actual design for the house. I'll hand this up to you.
And it does have a roof deck.
Yeah, it shows the roof deck as well.
Do you know the different square footages of the first floor and the second floor?
I think they're on that survey.
They're probably here somewhere, but it'll take me a while to find them.
I think the second floor is like 1,800 square feet or something like that.
Yeah, there are attached to those sheets, footprints, building footprints, the first and second story living area.
Actually, hold on.
That I'm sure it's spelled out the exact square footage.
I have the microscopic version. The first floor is a little bit larger because it has this little bump out that goes around the sanitary system. This is a small office. And then the second floor is inset. There's no second floor over this area. Oh my gosh, yeah, I can't read that.
We'll need to adjourn this, but I want to ask if there's any public interest, any public comments first, and then I want to wrap up what has been spoken about and set a course for what to do next.
I think my client would like to say something before you go any further.
We can do that.
Hi, my name is Howard Eiferman. I'm one of the owners of the property, and thank you for your time. I came a very long way to be here, so I appreciate the opportunity to be heard. You know, when I bought this property, one of the things that I looked at was the neighboring property just a couple of doors away. You know, the plans were available to be seen, and you know, I looked at them, we studied them, and we saw that that property had more significant wetlands within the boundaries, that the project they were proposing was was a bigger project, more complex, more structures on the property. And you know, the best way as a purchaser to try and evaluate whether or not you know, you're going to be able to do something similar is to look at neighboring properties. And you know, my assumption was that we'd be able to get something comparable, you know, in fairness. As you know, there's a significant, buying a property is a significant investment, and there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into working with the architects and environmentalists and things of that nature. You know, I know this property has some challenges, and you know, when I started working with Daphne, I told her that you know, we're committed to addressing those challenges in the best way possible, and do whatever you need to do to mitigate any environmental issues that that may be there. But at the same time, you know, our expectation was that we'd be able to build what our neighbors have there. And in terms of the placement of the property, in terms of you know, the size of the property, and we're not even asking for what they have. You know, they have a pool house, they have a garage, they have a few structures there. So you know, I strongly feel what we're asking for is very reasonable. You know, it's a beautiful town, and I hope that we can really get this plan approved as is. And again, you know, I've told Daphne, whatever it takes to be able to get this approved, and to, at the same time, mitigate all these, you know, some of these challenges, you know, would be greatly appreciated. You know, thank you for your time, and I guess that's what, you know, just speaking from the heart.
Just one of the things of caution when you use that methodology for choosing property and develop expectations, we have to look at each property site-specific and see the differences, and there are very significant differences on each of these properties. And this has a 900 square foot house. Here's another property, the one I think you're referring to, was probably twice that size. This is prone to flooding in ways that that property is not. It's a small property. So there are very different situations here. And that's why if we didn't look at things site-specific, you wouldn't need this board, just copy something else and move on. Yeah, that's a guide, but it's not something you want to hang your hat on. Just, you can have some expectations, but you have to look at each property for its own merits and its own challenges. And there are some challenges here, as you say, that we're trying to uncover and decide how we can mitigate them. So there's a process to go through, and I'm not sure anybody has the answer. But what you've heard tonight is that there are some very significant concerns with the project as presented. We will probably ask and probably end up approving something somewhat different. How much different? We don't know yet. There's a process here to go through. I don't think any determinations are made yet. We just ask for your patience as we go through this process and decide what seems to be what complies with chapter 325 and works for the DEC as well.
Understood. I respect that. Daphne?
We do have a plan that does slightly reduce the house that we brought with us tonight, if you would like to see it.
Of course.
Thank you.
So we did a little bit of work to try to do something that would still be palatable as an alternative to the owners, and still kind of keep us where we are with the DEC. We kept the front of the house exactly where it is, kept everything as far as the sanitary, where it is. I don't think the drainage is on this plan. I believe 3 feet of the house footprint was cut off, and the office arm, and then the deck was basically squared off at 12 feet in width. So the deck is reduced from 600 square feet on the first floor to 560, maintaining that 420 square foot second floor deck with the same hot tub. So everything's moved back, really it's only a few feet. However, it really doesn't move anything outside of what Marty is looking for from that 4-foot contour, because in order to do that, you would need to relocate the septic system. We were doing this mainly to just lessen the size of the footprint. So the footprint goes down to 2,100 square feet on the first floor, from 2,425 down to 2,100 square feet. So the issue then just becomes a juggling thing. So if you're going to relocate the house, then you're moving that closer to the road. And then what happens to the sanitary system? Where does that go? I don't really see a good option. But keeping, to me, the reduction that we've done here isn't much of a gain for the buffer per se, or you know, there's not, the owner is not really, I don't see why he couldn't keep the office, is what I'm saying, I guess. Because there, I don't know what you're gonna really gain with this plan. But in order to redevelop this property, I guess the point I wanna make is, in order to redevelop this property, if Marty wants the house put closer to back where it is right now, how does one redevelop this property and upgrade a sanitary system? The sanitary system takes up a significant amount of area. The drainage, as you can see, for the house takes up a fairly significant amount of area. So you need a fairly significant amount of area in order to redevelop this land. So I don't know how you would do this and not have your sanitary system significantly closer to one wetland or the other, if you're going to move the structure.
Daphne, one of the challenges tonight is that this is a lot of new information that has to be broken down and understood. And I'm still trying to figure out what you reduced in size. I'm just looking at it, and if it's according to scale, it looks like you reduced the north-south distance a little bit, but not the east-west distance a little bit.
No, it was, yes, it's 3 feet off of this, and this was cut off.
3 feet off of what?
Off of the distance over here. Basically, 3 feet of this was cut off, and then this whole office
3
area.
feet across the water side of the
Yes,
house?
so it's a 3-foot greater setback from this direction,
Okay,
and then everything moves back 3 feet. And then so the deck comes back 3 feet, and then this line here for where this little jump out is for the spa just gets squared off.
okay,
So this whole thing is cut off. Here, the
Okay.
deck and this office is cut off, plus 3 feet of the back of the house.
okay.
Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. Just taking a quick scan at these, the latest drawing, the changes are not sufficient to address the real challenges with this property. The square footage of the footprint as expressed has only been reduced by 325 square feet. It would still call for building a home with a footprint twice the size of the existing home on a very constrained site. The DEC may not even be aware of the flooding issues with this property. They're in all likelihood just looking at the location of the wetlands and the setbacks, and that's why they look to permit a more centralized location for the house. I'd certainly be happy to share with the DEC the photographs on record showing the flooding issues with this property, so they can better understand why I'm looking to ship that house to the south. With regards to the challenges of finding enough area for shifting the septic system and shifting the house, it was already offered by the board that the subsurface drainage chambers can perhaps be situated under the house. So that already free up a lot of area. We have many constrained properties that come before this board where the house is elevated on pilings, and they look to put the large part of the drainage under the house in order to better address the constraints of the property. That all being said, I'm happy to put pen to paper and provide the applicant with an alternative sketch for this property. You know, I'm, of course, handling hundreds of applications, so I will need at least some time to get that done for the applicant. Thank you.
I agree.
So Daphne, just as I look across these two surveys, it appears that the first plans you offered tonight is for a 4,200 square foot house. About 2,400 on the first floor, about 1,800 on the second floor. The second plan is looking for 3,653. There'd be 2,100 on the first floor, 1,553 on the second floor. On the surface of it right now, I say, yeah, I'm more interested in that second one. What I was looking for too was if you had reduced the house near the east boundary line, you could actually, I think you gotta explore that to see with the architect and all. If you were to reduce it by approximately 300 square feet, whatever those numbers come to there, then you could have a full second story without concern about the pyramid law, because you'd essentially be moving the boundary for the first story under the boundary you've already got for the second story, and that would give you more house for less impact, because the second story doesn't have the same impact as the first story. It also would remove some structure from the neighbor on that side, where one of the concerns that we would look at there is what impacts will this have on immediate neighbors? And putting the septic system where you have is probably a wise thing. It looks like the best place for it in this property. Adding fill, I've been trying to calculate how that is designed, and I haven't been successful in that yet. It seems like that's a lot of fill for what you're doing there. And I think there's an opportunity to go back to the engineer to see if there are ways to do something a little bit different. I'd just be curious if they could, because it seems like there's an opportunity to reduce the fill. As far as you building a house where it may flood, and over the past 22 years of these surveys, not surveys, but these photos, aerial photos we have, it looks like it has flooded in that area a few times, perhaps more. Those aerials are not complete for all the times of possible flooding. That's also your problem, your client's problem. If the client wants to build with his feet are wet, then that's your client's problem. We gotta stay according to check 325, but we don't have direct requirements on 325 for that. And as far as safe access, you've got one set of stairs over there, but you got most of the staircase and access to on higher ground. So I think you're okay you're taking a risk, but I think that risk is evaluated, mitigated, and you're comfortable with that. So I'm not pushing strongly for that, but I do like to see a bigger side yard setback on the east, so that there's less opportunity for those structures, the structures to impact that neighbor on the east. With a IA system on the west, you're forced to keep your structures farther away to reduce the impact of that neighbor. And then by reducing the fill as much as you can, that also would have a reduction of impact to the neighbors. So bottom line is, what I'm trying to calculate all night as to how you can have, instead of a full first story and a partial second story, how can you match those up to make them even, to give you more bang for the buck, so you can get the most house you can on the property, because that seems to be one of your goals. And that would give you the most house for the least impact. Now, those are some general ideas. They gotta be fleshed out and figured out some more.
So when would you like to come back?
Well, let's see if there's anybody, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
You seem so overjoyed. Now, as I said before, when the owner was here, there was a process here. These aren't hard and fast rules to follow.
I understand.
These are just things to explore, because we're called to explore alternatives. Now, you may come right back to something you already got here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that yet. We're exploring alternatives to see what looks like fits best for all the issues involved. But before we set a date to come back, I want to see if there's anyone in the public who would like to speak in this application. And there are some people in the public. Does anyone who want to speak on this application?
No?
Is there anybody on Zoom? Now we're ready for a date, unless you want to say something else.
I will just say, I flagged the wetlands on this on March 30th, 2022. And we worked on this plan for pretty much a year before it got to you. So this was not a willy-nilly situation at all. A lot of effort and planning went into this before an application was submitted. A lot of thought went into this. Knowing the sensitivity of the lot, so, my client is willing to do native plantings on the property. He would probably like to see some very minimal lawn, probably just between the development and the buffer. Maybe some pathways to access the back of the house. Otherwise, natives over everything else would probably be fine. I did mention about doing the supplemental planting, if that is something that Marty sees as valuable within the meadow to aid with those flooding months. Otherwise, I think that's it. I understand what you're looking for, and we can see what is possible. But it's difficult.
Harry,
Uh,
I have something. Your suggestions are changing the design of the house and making it into a box house. And your original plan wasn't a box house, was it? I don't know if that's any concern, just changing the whole design.
Well, it's not necessarily, it's a modern design, but it's not necessarily a box over a box per se. Has some, I don't know how to describe that, but it's less rigid, so to speak.
Hmm.
I would encourage board members to go look at the site if you have not been there, because it is definitely worth seeing. Especially when you see the project underway a few doors down. That's all I have to say.
Part of the reason we need to adjourn is that we need to give staff a chance to look at this new information and make, develop comments for it also. So there's homework to do on both sides here. When's a good time to come back? We have a pretty open schedule.
What are your dates?
The soonest available dates are in January of next year. We don't have any space on December, at the December meetings. So there's January 10th, January 24th, February 8th, February 28th.
There's nothing in December?
No. No, it's filled up.
We got three.
We got 3 on the 6th, and we've got 3 on the 20th, so. And the 20th in particular are gonna be lengthy, very lengthy hearings.
What was the first date in January?
First date in January is January 10th. We only have one hearing right now scheduled for that day.
I guess that's good.
Motion to adjourn till January 10th.
Second?
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
You sure that's everything? I don't know who those two guys were. You're welcome. Have a good evening. Daphne, there's something in the,
Oh, Daphne, you're.
you got something in there, in the front and in the second aisle. Okay.
Advisory reports for the planning board, 215 East Montauk Highway.
Marty Shea, Chief of Environmental Wetlands for the town. This is a pending 2-lot subdivision application. It's in the pre-application stage for a vacant forested piece on the north side of Montauk Highway, extending up to the Long Island Railroad in Hampton Bays. There are several recommended comments. First is that based upon November 14, 2023 field assessment, the tract is marked by well-established oak pine and sedge woodlands, exemplary of coastal pine barrens, excepting for minimal invasive vegetative cover along the immediate highway frontage and bordered with the commercial development to the west. Second, these woods provide essential ecosystem services, including carbon sequestration, air purification, and habitat for native flora, insects, and songbirds, as well as watershed lands for the Great Peconic and Shinnecock Bays. Thirdly, consistent with other approved residential subdivision maps abutting the railroad, a minimum 50-foot wide scenic easement or buffer needs to be required along the north boundary of the interior flag lot in order to preserve scenic views from the well-traveled railroad. And lastly, clearance standards need to be imposed to reduce adverse impacts to the environment and quality of life.
Can you fix the mic?
It's green. Clearance standards need to be imposed to reduce adverse impacts to the environment and quality of life within Hampton Bays, with site disturbance limited on both lots to 60% of the lot area.
Motion to send these comments to the planning board?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? For the Board of Trustees, Kalila 23 LLC.
This is a plan for an elevated catwalk, which would extend along an existing right-of-way easement from a residence down to Tiana Road. There are two recommended comments. First is that the routing of the proposed pedestrian water access path and elevated catwalk can be supported so long as the existing woodland pathway is utilized for access and every effort is made to minimize cutting of natural vegetative cover. Second, the construction details call for installation of light penetrable decked catwalks supported by untreated posts and thus are consistent with Conservation Board standards.
Motion to send those comments to the Board of Trustees.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The administrative wetland permits are in your packets. Conservation management plan and easement interpretation are 0220276, Adrian and Cheney, and the applicant wishes to postpone to December 6th.
Motion to postpone to December 6, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution conditional approval, A 022089, Richard Landress and Donna Landress. Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit will be granted to Richard Landress and Donna Landress for the proposed project for the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 023046, Hope Marks. Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit will be granted to Hope Marks for the proposed project for the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 023058, 8 Wells Road LLC. Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland permit will be granted to 8 Wells Road LLC for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Preliminary review signature determination, A 022074, 3 Duckwood Court LLC.
This subdivision relates to a residentially developed property that fronts on Red Creek Pond and has an interior brackish pond as well, together with coastal pond barrens habitat. The board had issued a wetland permit back in 2017 in order to allow for redevelopment of this property, which called for demolition and removal of a prior residence and house and decks and construction of a new home. When the new home was built, the contractor made some changes, including, among others, the addition of a lot of hardscape, the import of rock steps, patios, sanitary system was reconfigured, all of which resulted in encroachments within the existing covenanted buffer. I have been working with the applicant for some time to address those issues. The landowner had also let the initial permit lapsed, so they don't have a valid permit at this time. So an application had to be made for a new Conservation Board permit, also to reauthorize the residential redevelopment activities that were previously permitted, as well as to address the entirety of needed site reclamation that will require the filing of an amended covenant to establish a reconfigured buffer. The plans that are before you for reclamation and native revegetation are excellent and can be approved. As such, we have sufficient information to make a determination on this application, and the hearing requirement can be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing?
Second.
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A022082, Erlinda Bildner, postponed to December 6th.
Motion to postpone to December 6, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A023015, Danny Efron and others.
This is a residentially developed bulkheaded property in Remsenburg, Spion. There is a preliminary advisory report filed dated November 8, 2022. The application was filed in order to gain approval to expand the existing residence, as well as to address a host of non-compliant, unauthorized activities within close proximity of the bulkhead, including various deer fences, hardscape associated with landscaping and other disturbance. I did forward recommendations to the applicant, providing guidance as to how those non-compliant activities need to be addressed and/or be otherwise legalized or rectified by this board. The plan that is before you now calls for elimination of all deer fence, as well as removal of all fencing within 50 feet of the bulkhead. I've asked that they establish a 10-foot wide naturally vegetated wetland, non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer that runs full length of the bulkhead. The applicant is amenable to those changes. They are also installing an upgraded IAOW-TS. This is an application for which we have sufficient information to make a determination. As such, recommending that the hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing?
Second?
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-80 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A023022, Guillaume Savadier, postponed to December 6th.
Motion to postpone to December 6, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A023051, DLS Partners, Inc.
This application relates to an interior bulkheaded lot in the private community of Shinnecock Shores in the Hamlet East Quad. There is a advisory report on file dated November 8, 2023. The application has been filed in order to remove and replace various rear patios, to replace the existing swimming pool coping, to renovate and repair the existing residence. There also is a failing concrete stairway going down to the water. The house is significantly elevated above the canal, and as the closest activities to the bulkhead and surface waters are 30 feet away, consistent with the board standards for the Shinnecock Shores. They have agreed to covenant those lands extending 25 feet away from the bulkhead, which would take in the lowland area and take in the sloping naturally vegetated ground as well. There are a lot of invasives in that area. They're going to remove the invasives and plant indigenous vegetation. And they're going to replace the failing concrete stairway with a light penetrable decked elevated staircase. This is an application for which we have sufficient information to make a determination. As such, recommending that the hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 023054, Lucy Jensen, postponed to December 6th.
Motion to postpone to December 6, 2023.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Have a happy Turkey Day.